Teachers of Reddit, what is your this student is so smart it's scary story. A kid's work kept deleting itself on a computer every few minutes. He was having a meltdown, and I saw it happen. It was impossible to explain the phantom deleting that was going on. Fast forward to the end of the class and there's one kid remaining that was sitting at the opposite computer from the kid who lost all his work. He looks at me and says, "You wanna know how I did, sir?" He had put in a USB keyboard into the back of the computer and had it set up so he could hit the delete key with his big toe. It was the funniest stealth attack I'd seen in a long time. Being the teacher, I should have done something, but it was too funny and smart. A student at my school had OCD, so just memorized the textbook and wrote out the correct chapter for each question. Also, their handwriting was so neat that it looked like it had been typed out with a typewriter. Former school aide here. I once had a very tiny lad surprise me. For typical development would be learning basic alphabet recognition and first sounds towards word forming. However, he took some clay and made an pan plan plane planet planets across the table and wandered off again. Had a first grader figure out exponents on his own. Edit. Also to note, the kid knew numbers, but we had to read the directions to him because he couldn't read well enough yet. I had a kid who could take one look at the national flag and then point to the corresponding country on an unlabeled world map instantly. I have a student who is an immigrant that speaks fluent English. I assumed that she grew up in the USA. She told me she had been here for a year and knew zero English before coming. I was amazed. I have another student who just does calculations instantly in his head. He doesn't have to think. When he learns more math, it just becomes automatic. He explained that numbers just make sense. I had a student ask for an extension on their paper because they were representing our nation in the World Science Festival. They came in third, and the paper was an A+. I have a 5-year-old this year who has stolen my wallet more times than I'd like to admit. From my pocket. Without me knowing. I now wear a wallet chain like I don't remember what decade it is. He still tries, but he hasn't figured out a workaround. Yet. I taught high school math. One of my freshman students divided 1134 by 63 in his head in less than a second. I let him finish the problem, and then after he arrived at his answer, I asked him, "How did you do that?" He looked at me with this blank stare as if he was thinking, "You can't do that?" He proceeded to say, "Well, I doubled 63 and then multiplied that by 10, and then I saw that 1134 was just the difference of those two numbers, so 18. Looked at me like it was nothing. I told him good work and moved on. I'm only above average at a few things, but one of them is mental math. When I saw that this kid could do this calculation that I couldn't, I was so happy. It was one of my happiest moments as a teacher. I didn't help him in that moment, but to know I played a small part in his math education felt so good. Edit. Okay, I get it, you're all geniuses. I wish I had you all in my math class. I once had a pre-kindergartner who could read and cried because he was so upset with how dumb the rest of the kids were. I teach kids with autism that learn on the alternate curriculum, usually lower level academics, and have cognitive delays. I'm always amazed that while they might struggle in one area, the strengths they have. I had one girl who knew everyone's birthday, everyone she met, day, month, year, and age. She could also do crazy math in her head. I have another kid who is minimally verbal but knows every locker combination in the school. Two others who are amazing artists. Another who could tell you what 80s movie icon shared a birthday with you. I love my kids. I'm not a teacher, I'm a student, but one of my classmates just has so much random shit memorized. Ask him about anything, like the Crimean War, how to build a combustion engine, random useful bits of information about bands from the 70s, as well as being an excellent student in every single subject. He's also managed to teach himself Cyrillics or whatever that Russian alphabet thing is, and can speak Russian pretty well, despite never having taken a class of it in his life. It's just nuts, he's so good at so many random things. In third grade, we did this thing called rocket math. We had 1 minute to do as many problems as we could, a page of 60 problems. You get a prize if you get enough right in one go. This one girl was so fast the teacher had to shorten her time to 30 seconds. She finished 60 problems in less than 30 seconds, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, all of it in 3rd grade. Even with 30 seconds, she still had spare time. I'm a student BTW. We also ran out of prizes. I was doing a 500-piece puzzle with some kids. I was a preschool teacher. We finished the puzzle, except for one piece, which was nowhere to be found. Kid comes in, takes one look at the puzzle on the table, says, "Oh, are you missing that? I know where it is." reaches into another completely different 500-piece puzzle, rummages for like 10 seconds, pulls the piece out, fits it in. I ask him how he knew it was there. He said he had done the other puzzle for a bit and noticed it. I asked him how long ago. Christmas, he says. It was February at the time. Kid was maybe 5 at the time. Might be more memory than intelligence, but that was crazy to see. Such a great kid, in somewhat dire circumstance. I hope he's gotten all the opportunities he deserved. I'm a piano teacher on the side. Teaching a 4-year-old how to read sheet music before she can read books. I ask her to find the CS, and she will point then out on the page Ect. She can also do math really well and understands the concept of multiplication. Also another student that just started and plays by ear and composes her own pieces at 8. She also speaks 5 languages, which I didn't find out until I told her I was learning German. After teaching her for 3 months, she's already to the point where I had to send her to a better teacher. Obligatory, not a teacher comment. There was once a kid in the grade above me in middle school that hacked the school database and deleted everyone's grades. He was expelled. Edit. This was about 6 years ago. And it wasn't just as easy as using a teacher's username and password, as teachers only had access to change grades in their own classes. He was caught because he bragged about it. He was just one of those kinds of kids. My mother told me a story once of a kid she went to high school with. This kid was the local stoner but incredibly smart. He was talking college courses way before everyone else, saying they like ran out of math for me dog. My daughter was like that at 3. My sister is a kindergarten teacher, and she just loves telling people she taught my daughter multiplication as a toddler. Really, she was distracting her in a store, and my daughter was counting by 2s. My sister said, "Can you do that with 3s?" My daughter thought about it and then just did it. They went through this all the way to the 7s in 10 minutes. My sis told her it was called multiplication, and to this day takes credit for it. My daughter is currently in 6th grade, taking both Algebra 1 and Geometry. She isn't a genius or prodigy, she isn't doing so well in history. Probably because, for example, instead of taking notes on the Haitian Revolution yesterday, she started writing all the exponents for 3. She was proud to show me she got all the way to 3 to the 50th. Some people just feel numbers and enjoy them more than other things. My mom was a student teacher in the early 1970s. She recounts the story of a gifted first grader that nobody really knew how to handle. Every day her mentor would give the child a copy of the New York Times and let him read during her class. Much later, my mom was working as a speech therapist and had a severely autistic child that would come in daily. After their lessons, he would spend his free time drawing elaborate and accurate city maps on the whiteboard. It was fascinating. Not a teacher, but had a classmate who was, and still is, a genius. I distinctly remember him asking very complex questions on the current reading literature and making constructive arguments. It was over my head, but our teacher was offended and argued back that he didn't understand anything and/or an overachiever. I think they were over her head as well. She screamed at him and stormed out of class a number of times. There was a time she asked him to leave as well. I never felt so bad for a classmate. He didn't deserve to be yelled at like that. I believe he's now a mathematician with published works and awards, as well as a successful musician. Not a teacher, but a kid in my grade ended up taking courses 2 years ahead of the rest of us advanced kids. The funny part was that he skipped his own mother's class and wrote novels during middle school math. He's published 3 books and currently has over 95% in every class. Not a teacher, but a proud big brother. My baby sister was 5 when I came home from college for the summer after actually figuring out calculus. And I explained it to her. And she wrote it down in her journal. Yes, she kept one from the time she was about 4. Fast forward after she skipped a few grades in elementary school, and she was taking calculus in high school. And could not understand why it was so easy. And reread her journal, figured it out, and called me, laughing. She has a PhD in high-energy physics and does research at CERN. Yeah, that stuff. Desperately proud of her. Not a teacher, but had a classmate in my American government class in a community college about 9 years ago. Our teacher gives 3 questions for you to pick one of them to write about for the test in essay format. You get the question about a week or so to prepare you to study your subject question. Most people write an average of 5 to 8 pages during the test. This guy writes around 20 pages, give or take. Even the teacher was dumbfounded. He did this for every test, and this is a 3-term class. You don't have to take all terms, or even take it order if you happen to do all 3. Yes, he got A's. He wanted to get into politics. I heard of overachievers, but WTF? Who does that? We had a 4-year-old in preschool. He was sitting under the table writing down numbers for a long time. He had no time to talk to us. When he came out and we looked at what he had been doing, he said he wrote down all the multiplications. It turns out his brother in 5th grade was learning the multiplication table, and this little brother really wanted to do the same, but did not have a multiplication table. He counted on his fingers to add each column, and got the table right. A few days later he knew multiplication. He would also comment on dates. If someone told they had their birthday on June 12th, he would say that is in 184 days almost immediately. On an excursion we passed some statues with birth and death dates, and he would casually sum up. He was 78 years and 110 days old, she was born 33 years and 120 days before him, etc. I think he was maybe more focused and willing to understand than necessarily so smart. Edit. Since got some traction. This kid is really the whole package. He is enthusiastic about everything. Gymnastics, science, art, math. Not at all to compete, just because it is what he likes. Other kids just follow him, and he is the off in the center, and he is kind and nice. Never seen him push, hassle or brag. Just enjoys taking in all facets of life. I just wanted to show him I could see who he was. I treated him as an adult in conversations and feedback. He was of course childish in many ways, but behind the noise of childishness was a wise soul I wanted to know and encourage. One of my kindergarteners just knows multiplication, and not just the basic 5s or 10s. In the beginning when his parents told me I played along with 2x2 or 10x10, but you can tell him 17x14 and he knows it instantly. So cool to watch. My mom was a student teacher in the early 1970s. She recounts the story of a gifted first grader that nobody really knew how to handle. Every day her mentor would give the child a copy of the New York Times and let him read during her class. Much later my mom was working as a speech therapist and had a severely autistic child that would come in daily. After their lessons he would spend his free time drawing elaborate and accurate city maps on the whiteboard. It was fascinating. Obligatory, not a teacher comment. There was once a kid in the grade above me in middle school that hacked the school database and deleted everyone's grades. He was expelled. Edit. This was about 6 years ago. And it wasn't just as easy as using a teacher's username and password, as teachers only had access to change grades in their own classes. He was caught because he bragged about it. He was just one of those kinds of kids.